Today on the 9th of November, the Blue Origin New Glenn will fly for the second time, launching its payload of dual Escapade spacecraft toward their destination of Mars. The New Glenn's first mission was to deliver their own payload, the Blue Ring Pathfinder, to an elliptical Earth orbit. I thought that to commemorate the launch, it would be pretty cool to build a replica in New Glenn and fly its first mission in KSP. So right now in the time-lapse, what I'm doing is I'm building the second stage. It took me a little bit to find the engines that were the right size, and the stage is generally more powerful than it needs to be. The whole rocket had much more delta V than was needed to achieve the mission objectives. Right now I'm building the brass skirt, and later I'll build another kind of area around the second stage out of a golden fairing to give the brass plated colour. I've used 7 Mastodon engines for the first heavy lifting stage as stand-ins for the 7 BE4 engines that the New Glenn uses. The fore and aft stabilisers on the rockets are made of wings parts, and I've clipped some control surfaces into the first stage in order to simulate the 4 stabilisers' reaction capability. Only after recording did I realise I'd mistakenly put only 2 4 stabilisers on the rocket rather than the 4 present on the real thing. Moving on to the payload, it took 2 or 3 iterations of design for me to be happy with what I had built, while maintaining needed reaction control and battery spaces. I used a fairing to hide these internals. The Blue Ring Pathfinder was the most difficult part of this mission to replicate, as references were contrarian and some parts could not be perfectly replicated. The solar panels are the key deviation, and in order to maintain the final look of the payload in orbit, I compromised by clipping them partially into the top of the second stage. I used science experiments and antennae to represent the various modules attached radially to the Blue Ring Pathfinder, as well as some landing legs to replicate some structural pieces. I used gold and silver foil probes to replicate the look of the Blue Ring Pathfinder, and it took me quite a while to find the right solar panels. I ended up settling on one of the ones I tried first, so it was a bit of a waste of time. For this mission I'll be following the second stage with payload into orbit, and then reload a quick save to follow the failed landing attempt of the first stage booster, after the real booster's telemetry data was lost after a failed engine relight. Because of how KSP works, it isn't possible without more mods to follow both the booster and payload simultaneously, so this is an appropriate compromise. Here I'm adding some kind of landing legs to the first stage booster. I don't end up landing this one as to follow the actual flight profile of the NG1, but if I am to in future recreate maybe the NG2, if that one manages to land, then it might be nice to have them just to adapt this booster, though there is quite a lot I need to change in order to do that. Not least the 4 stabilisers being incorrect, and the whole payload needing a complete redesign, considering the fact that the NG2 is carrying something completely different. Here I'm adding some reaction control systems and batteries into the first booster. And here's the final look of my Blue Origin New Glenn 1. So we're going to switch to 2 AM when it actually flew, and we're going to launch it. So here it is on the pad, ready to go. I think it looks pretty good. The main difference is the scale. The real NG1 has a 7 meter diameter, whereas this one has only 5. This is probably the least stable rocket I've ever made in KSP. It was really wanting to twist and turn quite a lot, and if you look at the nav ball you can see it kind of fighting to pull over towards or away from the camera. We're coming up to the staging event for the first stage here. So I'm going to make a quick save so we can come back later and land it, and we're going to cut thrust and then jettison the first stage and reignite the second stage rockets. Here I'm pitching further over in order to bring my periapsis up much quicker than my apoapsis, so we don't get too elliptical of an orbit. This is because if I don't do this, I'm just gonna escape the system by the time I get this. This is because the two rhinos are again way more powerful than I needed for this stage, and I didn't really use them in lower. Yeah, I didn't really use the throttle as much as I probably should. But yeah, so I'm gonna end up with, I believe, a bit of a high apoapsis, but yeah, I'll correct it a little bit when we're up. So we've just jettisoned the fairing and exposed the payload, and in not too long you're going to see the sunrise over the edge of Kerbin. You won't see the payload for a little bit because I did not go in and look at it, and I mean we're on the dark side of Kerbin, so you're not going to see much anyway. But when it goes round, you'll have a better view of the payload deployed. The volumetric clouds mod really gives this some more character. You can see the cumulonimbus clouds stretching kind of up and out on the edge of the troposphere, and here's the sun coming around the edge. Visual mods for KSP are kind of necessary. I can't even play with the old look of Kerbin where it barely has an atmosphere and it looks just a bit rubbish. Earlier I said that our apoapsis might be too low, might be too high due to my ascent profile, and that was right. So here we're going to have to make another corrective burn to increase our periapsis height compared to our apoapsis, otherwise we're going to burn back up when we orbit again. Ideally I would have had lower thrust the whole time and been able to raise my periapsis above the atmosphere in one burn, but I did not end up doing that, so we've got to do a second burn here. My final orbit isn't really much close to what the actual New Glenn one achieved. It was much more elliptical, going much further out at its apoapsis, and it also had a 30-degree inclination. Whereas my own orbit was much more circular and equatorial. Here you can see me deploying solar panels on the Blue Ring Pathfinder payload, and you can see the experiments, antennae and stuff that I put on the sides to more accurately represent the real thing. Funnily enough, I don't believe the Pathfinder was detached from the second stage in the actual mission, so I didn't give it the capability. It surprised me, so if that's wrong, please feel free to correct me. Here I've reloaded the quick save so that we can now follow the first stage booster down to its splashdown in the ocean. It was initially meant to land on the landing ship Jacqueline, though failures in telemetry and a failed booster relight, I believe, led to its loss. Here I've disabled all but 3 of the central engines, which I believe are the ones that it lands on, and we're about to have our engine relight. Despite the real booster being lost, I decided I would give it a semi-gentle splashdown in the ocean, just in order to test the booster and ensure that it would be capable of doing it if I were to hypothetically do a second mission. Here it all started going a little bit wrong. I killed too much speed with the booster and my retrogrades flipped around to the other side, so yeah, I gained too much sideways velocity, and this is what ended up destroying the booster in the end, because I was going much too fast when I contacted the water. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really enjoyed this. Hope you did too. This was the simulated New Glenn 1 mission by Blue Origin to put the Blue Ring Pathfinder into Earth orbit. I might do another one if I feel like it. Maybe even of the New Glenn 2 when that happens, which is in an hour as of recording this voiceover. So here's hoping that goes well. Thank you.